My name is Vasilisa Petrova, and now, at 25, I understand that my university graduation day was the moment of sweetest revenge. Standing next to my sister Milana in identical graduation gowns should have been a joyful experience, but years of unfair treatment had led to this very moment. I can still hear their cold, cutting words. She deserved it, and you didn't. The memory of the night my parents decided that only my sister was worthy of their investment still burns in my heart. I grew up in a seemingly ordinary middle-class family in the Novosibirsk academic town. Our two-story house with a well-kept garden looked perfect from the outside, and the family photos on the walls hid a difficult reality behind the forced smiles. My parents, Rodion and Daria, had stable jobs. My father was the chief accountant, and my mother was a literature teacher at the local gymnasium. They were rich, but well off enough that financial difficulties would not be part of my future. My sister Milana was 2 years younger, but somehow always seemed many steps ahead in the eyes of our parents. With her golden curls, easy academic success, and natural grace, she embodied everything they valued. From an early age, it was clear. Milana was the golden child, and I was just her shadow. I still remember New Year's mornings when Milana would unpack the last of her expensive toys, while I would receive practical items like socks or craft kits from the discount store. "Your sister needs more encouragement to develop her talents," my mother would explain when I dared to question the injustice. Even at 9, I was aware of the difference, but I learned to swallow my disappointments. School events only highlighted the differences in their support. At Milana's science fair, both parents took the day off to help her build elaborate displays. At my art fair, I was lucky if my mom popped in for 15 minutes during her lunch break. "Art is just a hobby, Vasilisa. It won't get you anywhere in life," my father would say dismissively. The only person who seemed to really see me was my grandmother Evdokia. During summer visits to her dacha by the Ob Sea, she would sit with me for hours while I sketched the water and trees. "You have a special view of the world, Vasilisa," she said. "Don't let anyone dim your light." That summer at my grandmother became my refuge. In her small library, I discovered books about successful entrepreneurs who overcame all obstacles, and I began to dream of proving my worth with achievements that my parents could not ignore. By high school, I had developed a strong character. I joined every economics-related club and excelled in math, discovering that I had a natural talent. When I won a regional business plan competition, my economics teacher, Orlov, personally called my parents to tell them how exceptional my work was. "That's sweet," Mom said as she hung up. "You remembered to help Milana with her history project. She has an important presentation tomorrow." Since 10th grade, I had been working after school at a local coffee shop to save money, sensing that I would need my own resources. I managed to maintain a perfect score despite working 20-hour weeks. Meanwhile, Milana joined the debate team and became an instant star, with her parents attending every tournament, celebrating her victories with special dinners. By the time we graduated, we were both applying to universities. Despite the age difference, Milana skipped a grade, so we graduated together. We both applied to the prestigious Novosibirsk State University, known for its economics and political science departments. And against all odds, on the same day we both received acceptance letters. I still remember the excitement, the trembling hands, opening the thick envelope. I got in. I announced it at dinner, and I was able to contain my joy. Full enrollment in the economics department. My father glanced at me from his phone. "This is Mila Vasilisa." A few minutes later, Milana burst through the door waving her acceptance letter. I got into NSU to study political science. She squealed. The change in the parents was instantaneous. Dad jumped up from his chair. Mom rushed to hug Milana, and dinner was immediately forgotten in favor of an impromptu celebration with champagne for the adults. "We always knew you could do it," Milana's mother said excitedly, seemingly oblivious to the fact that I had announced the same achievement just minutes earlier. 2 weeks later, the conversation that changed everything took place. "We need to discuss university plans," my father announced over dinner, but his gaze was focused solely on Milana. We've been saving for your education since you were born. Tuition at NSU is expensive, but we can cover it completely so you can focus on your studies." Milana beamed with pride, and I waited for my turn, believing that they were saving for both of us. The silence stretched on until I finally asked, "What about my tuition?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop. My parents exchanged awkward glances. "Vasilissa," my father said slowly, "we only have enough money for one of you, and Milana has always shown greater academic potential. We believe that investing in her education will yield better results." My mother patted my hand comfortingly. "You've always been more independent. You could take out an education loan, or maybe consider college first." And then came the words that will forever be etched in my memory. "She deserved it, and you, at that moment, the thin threads that bound our family together finally snapped in my mind." That night, after a crushing dinner, I locked myself in my room and let the tears I had been holding back for so long finally flow. The injustice was crushing me. 17 years of trying to win my parents' approval culminated in this final rejection. My top scores from winning the economics Olympiad and getting into a prestigious university meant nothing to them. I was never enough, and probably never will be. The next morning, puffy-eyed and exhausted, I met my parents in the kitchen before school. "How could you save money for Milan's education but not mine?" I asked, my voice shaking despite my best efforts to maintain composure. Mom sighed, stirring her coffee. "Vasilissa, it's not that simple. We had to make practical decisions based on our limited resources." "But my grades are better than Milan's," I countered. "I've been working part-time for 2 years now, and I still have excellent grades. Doesn't that show my dedication?" My father snapped the newspaper shut. "Your sister has always been focused on an academic career. You've been too distracted by other activities and this job of yours. Besides, Milana has a clear career path, and your business ideas are risky at best." "You never even asked about my plans," I whispered. "Look," Mom interjected, "we can help you apply for a loan. Many students finance their own education." That was the end of the conversation because they had already made their decision. In their eyes, I was less worthy, less promising, and therefore less deserving of their investment. That weekend, I went to my grandmother's dacha, seeking the only true support I knew. As I poured out my heart to her, Grandma Evdokia listened without interrupting, her wrinkled hands clasping mine tightly. "My dear girl," she finally said, wiping away my tears, "sometimes the most painful moments in life become our greatest catalysts. Your parents are wrong about you. Deeply, tragically wrong, but you have something they can't see, unbreakable determination. Grandma couldn't help me financially, but she gave me something more valuable, an unwavering belief in my potential. Promise me that you'll still go to NSU," she said firmly, "without letting their limitations become yours." That night, I made my decision. I would attend NSU with Milana, pay for my own education, and graduate despite all the obstacles. The next morning, I began researching scholarships, grants, work-study programs, and student loans. For weeks, I spent every free minute filling out applications. My homeroom teacher, Volkova, stayed after school to help me navigate the complicated financial aid system. I received a few small scholarships, but they weren't enough to cover the significant cost of tuition. By mixing a government student loan and a private loan, co-signed by Grandma Evdokia, I scraped together enough for the first year. Next came housing. While Milana had to live in an expensive on-campus dorm paid for by her parents, I found a tiny apartment 45 minutes away from the university with 3 roommates. In the meantime, I applied for any jobs near campus, and 2 weeks before moving in, I got a job at a busy coffee shop and a weekend shift at a local bookstore. The contrast between our preparations was striking. My parents took Milana shopping for new clothes, a laptop, and room decor. They helped her pack and planned a farewell party. I packed my things in used suitcases and boxes found outside grocery stores. The night before I left, my mother awkwardly offered me some old bedding. On moving day, Milana's parents drove her to her fancy dorm in the family SUV. I followed in my old Lada, which constantly needed topping up with coolant. As we parted at the entrance to campus, my mother shouted to me, "Good luck, Vasilisa. I hope everything works out for you." The doubt in her voice only strengthened my resolve. I would not just make it work, I would make it triumph. My new apartment was a shock, peeling paint, iffy plumbing, and unfamiliar neighbors. That first night, lying on a thin mattress with the sound of traffic, I felt the full weight of my situation. Doubt crept up on me. Will I be able to work 30 hours a week and study full-time at the same time? But then my phone rang, a message from Grandma Evdokia. "Remember, my brave girl, diamonds are born only under pressure. You are already shining." With that, I wiped away my tears and made a pre-schedule. Sleep would be a luxury, social life almost non-existent, but my education and future would not be sacrificed. The day before classes started, my school teacher Volkova called me unexpectedly. She convinced the teaching staff of my school to award me an additional stipend of 50,000 rubles. "It's not much," she apologized, but the teachers chipped in personally. "We believe in you, Vasilisa." This small act of kindness from people who truly saw my potential gave me the final push of courage I needed. As I carefully added this precious sum to my budget spreadsheet, I felt something inside me change. Determination turned into steel. My first year hit me like a hurricane. While most students were adjusting to university life and enjoying their newfound freedom, I was balancing 30 hours of work a week with a full course load in the economics department. My typical day would start at 5 a.m. with a 2-hour study session, after which I'd rush to my morning shift at a coffee shop. After class, I'd head straight to my second job at a bookstore, often not returning to my apartment until midnight. Sleep became a luxury I rarely had. I learned to read on the go, do homework during lunch breaks, and record lectures to listen to while cleaning coffee machines. The contrast between my life and Milan's was stark. From the occasional texts and social media posts, I saw her carefree student life, student club events, study abroad information sessions, and weekend trips home to pick up her mom's food. Meanwhile, I was calculating whether I could afford textbooks and groceries this month. Despite the grueling schedule, something unexpected happened. My business classes were not only manageable, I was thriving. Years of practical financial planning and work experience had prepared me in ways my classmates had not. While they were struggling with accounting fundamentals, I was applying those principles in real time to my own complex financial situation. Professor Bogdanova, my business ethics professor, stopped me after class in my second month. "Petrova, your case analysis was exceptional, especially your insights into resource allocation and family business dynamics. Your ideas demonstrate remarkable maturity. For the first time, my difficulties turned into an academic advantage." My fatigue was tempered by my growing confidence. At the same time, I was fortunate to find an unexpected friendship that changed everything. My flatmate, Zoya, noticed my rigorous schedule and began leaving homemade meals in the fridge with a note with my name on it. One evening, when I returned home particularly exhausted, she was waiting for me. "You can't go on like this," she said bluntly, placing a cup of tea in front of me. "You'll win before the session." When I explained my situation, her expression changed from concern to righteous indignation. "This is more than unfair," she said. "Consider me your university family from now on." Zoya became my salvation in the storm. She edited my term papers when my words blurred from exhaustion, created flashcards for my exams, and fiercely defended my study time from encroachment by other roommates. When she learned that I was skipping meals to save money, she insisted on cooking for both of us, refusing any payment. "My parents taught me that family takes care of each other," she explained simply, "and sometimes the family we choose matters more than the one we are born into." Halfway through my sophomore year, disaster struck. The coffee shop cut everyone's hours due to a seasonal slowdown, cutting my income by nearly 40%. My carefully calibrated budget was gone. Rent and tuition payments were coming due, and I was facing my first major financial crisis. In a panic, I remembered Ivan's ban outside the financial aid office and made an emergency appointment. Without examining my situation, she offered her practical advice and unexpected help. "Your academic performance qualifies you for an emergency grant," she explained, "and Professor Bogdanova recommended you for a research assistant position in the economics department. It pays better than a coffee shop, and it looks better on a resume." This position was another turning point. Working directly with Professor Bogdanova, I began helping her research small business resilience during economic downturns. "Have you ever thought about entrepreneurship?" she asked one day. Your insight into how resource scarcity drives innovation is profound. The seed of an idea that had been growing since high school began to take root. Using the skills I learned in my marketing classes, I created a simple online platform offering virtual assistant services to local small businesses. Working late into the night, I built a website and developed service packages tailored to the needs I'd observed in my research. By the start of my third year, my small business was bringing in enough income that I was able to quit my job at the bookstore. I kept my assistant position more for the mentorship than the money. Between my virtual assistant job, my research fellowship, and my loans, I had finally achieved a fragile financial stability. My confidence had grown along with my business. The girl who had once felt invisible was becoming a respected voice in the department. Meanwhile, Milana and I maintained a polite but distant relationship. Our parents called her weekly, but only contacted me on major holidays. During one holiday, when I couldn't afford to travel home, my mother wrote, "We miss you at dinner, but we understand that you are busy with your projects." Despite their constant disdain, my academic successes were becoming impossible to ignore. I was on the honor roll every semester, winning department awards, and being invited to speak at a regional business conference. Each accomplishment strengthened my resolve to prove that my journey was as valuable as Milana, if not more so. My senior year began with more momentum than I could have ever imagined. My digital marketing agency was thriving, servicing 15 regular clients and employing 4 students. We were even featured in a local entrepreneurship magazine, solidifying my professional reputation beyond the university. Inspired by Professor Bogdanova, I applied to a prestigious national competition for student business innovations. The main prize of 3 million rubles and nationwide fame seemed an unattainable dream, but after several qualifying rounds, I made it to the finals, scheduled just a month before graduation. Ironically, while my career was taking off, Milana faced her first serious difficulties. The demands of her thesis revealed her unpreparedness for real academic work. One evening, she showed up at my door, tearful and desperate. "I'm failing my thesis," she blurted out. "My supervisor says my methodology is no good, and I only have 3 weeks to redo it." Despite my mixed feelings, I saw in her despair not a reason for gloating, but an opportunity to rise above the past. "Come in," I said. "Let's see." That evening was the first of many. Helping my sister, I realized how much had changed. Years of independence and strict discipline had given me skills she never had, and for the first time in our lives, we began to really talk. "How do you do it all?" she asked one day when I explained my punishing schedule and financial difficulties. The horror in her eyes was genuine. "But why did you keep quiet? Would that have changed anything?" I answered quietly. The question hung in the air. For the first time, Milana saw the full depth of the injustice that defined our lives. She became my unexpected ally, even began to refuse expensive gifts from her parents, saying that she wanted to learn independence like her sister. Meanwhile, my own successes attracted the attention of the administration. Dean of the Economics Department, Romanova, invited me to give a speech at the graduation ceremony. "Your journey, Vasilisa," she said, "is a success story we want to highlight." I immediately agreed. It seemed like the perfect ending to my journey. Little did I know that the dean had planned more than just a speech. A few weeks later, I won a business competition. The university newspaper came out with my photo on the front page. I sent a copy to Grandma Evdokia, who called, weeping with pride. Her parents, as expected, remained silent. They had come to town 2 weeks before graduation to help Milana, rented a big house for all the relatives, and planned a grand party in her honor. I had received only a formal invitation. The sting of resentment was familiar, but not as strong. My self-esteem no longer depended on them. The day before the ceremony, my grandmother arrived with a special gift, a custom-made graduation sash embroidered with the words, "Diamonds are made under pressure." This gift meant more to me than any gesture my parents could have made. That evening, after the rehearsal, where the dean had mysteriously hinted at a surprise, the whole family gathered at a restaurant. The atmosphere was tense. When Uncle Igor asked about my progress, my father dismissively waved me off. "Oh, Vasilisa is busy with her little projects." The patronizing tone made it clear that nothing had changed for him. I caught Milana's sympathetic glance and saw my grandmother take my parents aside for a serious talk. Walking home that night, I felt strangely calm. Tomorrow would be the culmination of 4 years of relentless struggle. I had proven my worth to myself, and that was all that mattered. The morning of graduation day was clear and sunny. I woke up early, filled with excitement and anticipation. Today was not just the day of graduation, it was the day of my vindication. The phone rang, a message from Milana. "Good morning, graduate, see you at the formation. So proud to graduate with you." This simple message reflected how far our relationship had come. I put on the dress I had splurged on especially for this day, and, looking in the mirror, draped a special ribbon from Grandma Evdokia over my shoulders. 4 years ago, my parents had deemed me unworthy of their investment. Today I graduated not only with honors, but also with a thriving business and all-Russian recognition. The university was bustling. Seeing Milana, I approached her, and she hugged me tightly. "I can't believe we did it," she said. Even though I was barely there and you had conquered the world, her humility was still new to me. As we lined up, Dean Romanova approached us. "Petrova," she said quietly to me, "just confirming our plan. After the diplomas are presented, the rector will announce special awards. You'll give your speech, and then we've got a few more surprises." She smiled mysteriously. "It's best to let things run their course." We entered the assembly hall. I found my relatives with my eyes. My parents were sitting in the first rows. Their proud glances were fixed on Milana, who was walking ahead of me. Only Grandma Evdokia, elegant in her simple blue dress, looked straight at me. Our eyes met, and she nodded encouragingly. The ceremony went on as usual. Finally, it was time for the diplomas to be presented. When my name was called, I heard my grandmother's distinctive whistle break through the polite applause. Then the rector of the university came up to the podium again. "Before we conclude our ceremony, we have a few special awards. First, I would like to invite Vasilisa Petrova from the economics department to give a speech on behalf of this year's graduates." I glanced at my parents as I walked toward the stage. For the first time that day, they looked directly at me. Their faces were clearly perplexed. They clearly had not expected their less promising daughter to receive such an honor. As I stood at the podium, I took a deep breath. 4 years ago, I came to UNN with nothing but determination and the belief that an education is something to be earned, not something to be given. I started. Today, I stand before you after working 30 hours a week, maintaining a full course load, building a successful business that employs my classmates, and graduating with honors. I spoke of resilience, of finding strength in adversity, and of redefining success on your own terms. Without naming names, I touched on the pain of being underestimated and the strength that comes from proving naysayers wrong. After finishing to thunderous applause, I stepped aside and the rector returned to the microphone. What happened next changed the dynamic of my family forever. Thank you, Ms. Petrova, for those inspiring words. Now it gives me great pleasure to announce several special awards. First, the faculty of the economics department unanimously chose Vasilisa Petrova as the best graduate of the year, who graduated from the university with the highest score and simultaneously built a business that is now valued at several million rubles. A roar of approval swept through the hall. I froze, not expecting such public recognition. In addition, the rector continued, Ms. Petrova is the winner of the national competition for student business innovations, bringing unprecedented recognition to our university. The applause grew louder. I dared to look at my parents and saw their faces change from bewilderment to shock. But many of you may not know, the rector continued, his voice clearly carried through the hushed hall, that Ms. Petrova had achieved all this by funding her education entirely on her own, working several jobs and building her own business without any financial support from her family. And the news was like a bomb going off. The hall exploded in applause. Through the thunder of applause, I watched the color drain from my parents' faces, their expressions changing from shock to something akin to horror as they realized that everyone now knew they had refused to support their daughter, who was being honored as the most outstanding graduate. Milana stood among the graduates, applauding wildly, tears in her eyes. Finally, the rector made the final announcement. In honor of Ms. Petrova's outstanding example, the University Council is establishing the Vasilisa Petrova Endurance Scholarship to provide financial assistance to students who demonstrate exceptional determination to overcome obstacles to education. The symbolic victory was complete. As I returned to my seat, Milana grabbed my hand. "You're amazing," she whispered fiercely, "and they were so wrong about you." After the ceremony, I walked up to my family. "Well, that was a big surprise," my father said with a tight smile. "You've been hiding a lot from us." "Not at all," I answered coldly. "I've always been who I am, you just didn't pay attention." Before they could respond, Milana stepped forward, putting her arm around my shoulders. "Everyone is talking about Vasilis's speech and achievements," she announced to Bromko. "Isn't it amazing how she managed to achieve all this without any support?" Our mother visibly flinched. "Actually, I intervened. Today I have a celebration with my business team and mentors. They have been my true support all these 4 years." "I'm going with you," said Grandma Evdokia, taking my hand. "I want to meet these wonderful people who saw what your own parents couldn't." "I'm coming too," Milana announced, moving away from her parents and joining us. The sight of their 2 daughters walking away left my parents standing alone in the midst of the celebrating crowd. Their carefully constructed world, their idea of children, was collapsing before everyone's eyes in the face of the irrefutable truth.